Okay, hi guys, welcome back to the Audio Levels channel. Welcome back to another review, and today we're taking a look at this. This is the ThieAudio Hype 2, and ThieAudio have got a set of nuts on them if they want to come out and call their earphones the Hype, or that in this case the Hype 2. Calling your earphone the Hype in this community of fickle audiophiles is going to create an instant barrier where people don't want you to give you the confirmation. You can't have a manufacturer come out and tell you that this is fantastic and this should hype. You know, things naturally progress in hype, like a reviewer comes out, says this is fantastic, and it takes off to the moon. And that's the natural progression. Then, of course, you get the prick contrarians that come out and they try and make a name for themselves by opposing the hype, and you can see that. Yes, sometimes people have different opinions. I myself have different opinions of different earphones, but you get specific contrarians that come out to stand as the opposing voice, and that's their sort of brand image and stuff like that. But coming out with the hype, you've got to have a set on you to do that. And in this case, it is definitely justified. And I'm going to tell you why from my perspective. First of all, the price point. The price point's absolutely fantastic with this. I think it elevates that entry mid-level $300 price point that ThieAudio have been kind of wavering at. They've got absolutely fantastic top-end earphones and some really good low-end earphones, but now into that sort of below 500, that grey zone, because in the middle they always had the Oracle, the Clairvoyance, the Excalibur, etc. This one comes in lower than that, so it gives another gateway, another option to people. The other thing is that you can see here they're talking about the two dynamic drivers. That's actually trickle down technology from the more expensive earphones. It's the same sort of impact too. They're saying the pressurized chamber with the two dynamic drivers built into it, and it gives very, very impressive bass response on the expensive stuff. And I tell you what, it's on this as well. The other thing they're talking about is the two balanced armatures, and these seem to be new Sonian balanced armatures with greater frequency extension on them, and they seem to be hyping them as the new big thing, and it is again certainly evident in it. ThieAudio, let's touch on that for a second. ThieAudio is a company that in their Monarch Mark III, their Prestige Limited, their top-end earphones, punches the living shit out of the bigger manufacturers. It beats the living nonsense out of Campfire Audio. It beats the nonsense out of, let's say, Noble. It beats the nonsense out of Astle and Kern, like destroys them, because they can't compete on the value proposition that ThieAudio is bringing. ThieAudio have some of the best tuning engineers in the world, and if anybody disagrees, Monarch Mark III and Prestige Limited, they can tune earphones as good as anybody. But the thing is, they have access to the earliest tech coming out of Shenzhen. They're coming with their Impact 2. They're getting the latest Sonian drivers. They're getting the latest planers, and they're bringing this stuff to market really, really fast, faster than these other companies can keep up. So anybody thinking that I'm going to spend $3,000 on a Western branded one and thinking that that's going to outperform, you know, maybe perception in your mind because you think the price is more expensive so it equals quality, that's the fallacy that you're going to fall into. Anyway, rant over. I'm going to timestamp this video down in the description so that you can skip forward past my rants and stuff. So, as I say, Impact 2 drivers, Sonian drivers. So you got 4 drivers in there. Technically, 2 dynamic, 2 balanced armature. In the box is over here, and it's very standard ThieAudio fare. You get that generic carry case that is very Campfire Audio. You get a bunch of different ear tips, and you get this very, very nice cable. It really is quite nice. It goes from a quad twist into a dual twist after the splitter with metal hardware and the metal 3.5. The only negative on it is that it isn't an interchangeable system where you can change from balance to 3.5, etc., etc. The earphones themselves are pretty much stock. Again, I'll grab the Monarch Mark III. You can see right through the line of ThieAudio stuff. it's all very similar. You have this resin shell capped off by the metal nozzle on it. The metal nozzle is really good because if you drop it, something like the Canera Skull here, if you drop a Canera Skull that lands on that tip without an ear tip on it, lands on a hard surface, it can fracture and splinter. This is going to be just fine. Here, I really like that you have a recessed 2-pin connector, absolutely fantastic. And overall, it's just very clean, very well made. The faceplate design on this one, this is the purple version, and I've got the contrast set a little low, so it's going to be hard to see, but it is absolutely beautiful in person. And let's see if we can bring it up just a touch. There we go. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous in person. I believe it comes in 2 different colorways. Now, in terms of sound, can we get this to focus down? In terms of sound, it is absolutely fantastic. Now, it's not fantastic in the terms of this punches outside its own price point, because I think at this point, ThieAudio is defining the price points. That $300 price point, I think, is open for exploitation, and it's a very deep and very competitive place in the market. But you get up to $500 and you're getting into the original Oracle, Clairvoyance, Excalibur, Tribrids, things from LZ, etc., etc. You go up a little bit more, then you're getting into the Oracle Mark IIs, Dunuzens, that sort of stuff, and you go a little bit higher, then you're into Monarch territory, higher even still into Sony IER1ZR. But that $300 price point, if it was a few years before those $500 Tribrids existed, then yeah, this is like what you would say is an earphone that sounds like a $600, $700 earphone. But we now have that new stop point where those Tribrids come in at $500, and this does not exceed these in performance. So don't be mistaken with that. But as a $300 earphone, they're one of the best that I have ever heard. The reason being for that is they do so much correct and very, very, very little wrong. Let's start with the bass. The bass on this is impactful, textured, and packed full of detail. And I think that's where it gives you this extra dimension of the sound. Bass, to me, is always considered in 2 different areas. You have sub-bass and mid-bass. Sub-bass is that ethereal slam. This has that ethereal slam, that has this pump, and it has the larger of the 2 dynamic drivers that's able to move the larger volume of air into your ear canal and create that sense of impact and the sense of being drilled. The smaller of the 2 drivers, I'm guessing, is working in that mid-bass range and the transition into the mid-range. And it's done absolutely beautifully. It has very, very nice detail retrieval that is clearly evident when you listen to a lot of jazz music like I do. The double bass is somewhere where if you really want to test bass, everybody always thinks EDM music, example. I use EDM more for sub-bass, throwing like 2 feet quick musical diddles, for example. But if I'm going to listen to something like jazz, I'm going to throw in something with double bass, and I'm going to listen for those textures, the resonances of the strings, the decay of the strings, the sort of timbre, the fall off, and the airiness in it. I'm also looking for that transition to where the mid bass overlaps into the bottom of the mid range, and I'm trying to see if that is smooth enough and clean enough that it's not interfering, but it's still not dropping off. Some companies have that tendency to get into that mid bass and make it drop off just before so that it doesn't appear muddy. Other companies just let it bleed over. This perfectly transitioned. It's like a smooth and seamless transition into the lower mid-range. That mid-range is absolutely fantastic. It is got a hint of warmth on it. It's got absolutely fantastic imaging and separation between the instrumentation. It's got a definite sense of air to it. The width is what I would call normal, but it has good depth, and it does create a sort of spacey sort of thing where it's more like you're looking into an environment like this as opposed to a super wide environment like this. It's more like, you know, it's closed at your head and then it's expanding out here, so you can see instrumentation coming from different positions. The separation between instruments as well is very, very well done. Male vocals sound excellent, really nice sort of weight to them, but it's female vocals that really sparkle off a slight bump in the upper mid-range. Female vocals sounded absolutely fantastic and airy. I was listening to IO Down on My Knees, which has good variation from lower mid-range and a more gravelly tone into her actually screaming that's almost on the side of sibilant. And it just sounded fantastic. You could really feel the energy and sort of passion coming through it. The treble is smoothed off a little bit. It has a good extension, it has good clarity and good detail, but I'm not going to say they're like a treble head super energetic V-shape earphone or anything like that. It's just really nicely done treble, really nicely presented, not too in your face, but not recessed for the sake of safety. So for that reason, it actually works well with many different genres of music. It's a very versatile earphone. And in terms of competition and stuff like that, I think it's very, very hard to come against this. You definitely have something like the Tin Hi-Fi P1, which I consider still one of the best earphones under 300, and along with different variations of planar magnetic and piezoelectric drivers. These are something different, and you can tell it mainly from the presentation of the bass. It's the best bass I've heard at this price point in terms of quality of bass. That's not, don't get that confused with it being a bass head earphone, which I consider a bass head earphone to be an impactful sub-bass response. This is like a purist's bass, like somebody that loves all frequencies of bass, and that's its real strong point. Along with everything else just being so beautifully tuned. So ThieAudio prove yet again that they can tune an earphone as good, if not better, than any other manufacturer on the planet. And I think this one's really going to fill that gap where, as I say, you have the Prestige Limited, or V16 I think is at the top. Then you have the Prestige Limited at like 1,300. Just below that you have the Monarch Mark III, Monarch Mark II, I believe, still on sale, and then you go down to the Tribers, the Oracles, the Excaliburs, and so on. And the only gap in their market, you know, they had the Legacies, Legacy 2 and Legacy 3 down at that $100 to $200 price point. The only gap that they had left in the market was that ultra competitive $300 price point. And with this, the ThieAudio Hype 2, I think that they've really nailed that. This is a strong entry into a segment that they weren't really competitive in at all. To go in and just go right to the top of consideration is something very, very special. So I definitely feel that it is worth the hype. Now, in terms of negatives, there's very, very little to be talking about in terms of negatives here. It's just going to be a tuning preference thing. There's nothing that it does bad in terms of its tuning. There's nothing offensive. There's nothing off-putting. There's nothing that needs X, Y, or Z. As I say, in its price, is bang on. What I would say is the cable is absolutely beautiful. I wish it had balanced, and sometimes on the side you would see that it would have a balanced option. So I think you're going to need to pick up a balanced cable for it if you want to use it with your balanced connectors or something like that. It's not really necessary because it does drive well and it doesn't draw a lot of power. But for those of you wanting to use balanced, it's not going to be an option straight out the box. There's not even an adapter, I believe, but I'm going to just check that to see if I'm talking nonsense, because otherwise I'm going to get called out. No, there's no connector. They do give decent ear tips. That was the other one I was going to talk about. These earphones are begging for the ASLA ZendaFit elastic tips on them. That was the one that I did the majority of the testing with, and it's the only ear tips that I use now. At this point, they fit all of my earphones. ASLA ZendaFit elastic, there'll be the top link in the description below, because they're a little bit expensive, but they are game changers in terms of ear tips, and they work absolutely wonderful with these as well. So that's it. ThieAudio Hype 2. Am I going to get abuse for hyping it? I don't really care. I'll see you on the next video. The next one I think is going to be the Canyon Canyon 2. I've already done the SA6 Mark II, and I've also done the review of the SimGot EM6L. So lots of videos coming up this week. Please go ahead and subscribe and leave your comments down below. Does anybody else own these earphones? What are your thoughts? Cheers. Bye.